What's up, y'all? It's your man, Dad Dude, bringing you guys another video. So, I didn't really touch on Matt Corral's injury and my recap for the Panthers' second preseason game. And that's because at the time, there was no confirmation on what his injury was. And I was hopeful that it was something serious, but we now know that Matt Corral is going to miss probably the entire season with a Lisfranc fracture in his foot. I'm here to tell you that that injury could have major consequences for the Panthers. And you're probably wondering, how is an injury to a third-round rookie who probably wasn't going to play this year at all, how could that have major consequences? Well, before I get into that, I do want to wish Matt Corral a speedy recovery. I feel like to talk about just how this affects the team without talking about, how this actually affects Matt Corral and wishing him a speedy recovery, hoping that this doesn't affect his career going forward, that he doesn't have any lingering issues from this injury would be awfully callous. And I feel like too many people focus just on when it comes to injuries, just on how it affects the team and the team's like playoff chances and that kind of stuff, but never really talk about how it affects the player. So I do wish Matt Corral a great recovery and that this doesn't affect his career going forward and it's just a minor speed bump. But getting on to how this could have major consequences for the Panthers, the only quarterback signed past 2022 is Matt Corral. I think the organization's plan was to sign Baker Mayfield this year. Baker Mayfield comes in, he's your starter this year, and if he doesn't play well, you've already drafted Matt Corral. He gets to learn behind Baker for a year. Then next year, if Baker doesn't play well, you let him go. He's only signed for this 1 year. And then you put Matt Corral into the starting position and you go forward with Matt Corral. But with Matt Corral being hurt, that really puts a damper on how much he can learn this year. How much he won't get any practice reps now. He can still do film study and all that kind of stuff. He can go through mental reps with the other quarterbacks. But when it comes to being on the field, getting practice reps, getting timing down with receivers, Matt Corral won't be able to do that. So that really puts them behind the ball when it comes to his development. So let's say Baker comes out this year and he doesn't play well. Well, now, if your plan was to, Matt Corral to develop on the bench for a year, and then once he's developed, he's learned more about the NFL game, you can start him next year. If that development doesn't happen and Baker also doesn't play well, where does that leave you going into 2023? Into the 2023 season? Where does that leave you as an organization? Are you now more likely to go draft another quarterback? Do you still ride it out with Matt Corral and see what he can do? But he hasn't developed like you thought he would because he had the injury. So this really could have major consequences of what the Panthers plan to do going forward. If Matt Corral's development, it doesn't progress the way the Panthers have planned for it to, and Baker doesn't play well, they could be going into a quarterback needy position again next year when they thought, okay, now we have Baker. He can hold us down for this year. If he plays great there, you sign him. If he doesn't, cool. When Matt Corral learns on the bench, then next year, Matt Corral takes over, and at least we have a plan in place. But with Matt Corral's injury, that kind of throws that plan out of whack. How do you plan? What do you do now if Baker doesn't play well? You can still go with Matt Corral, but he didn't have that development that you wanted him to have. If you think he's a diamond in the rough and he's really raw and he needed that development, if he doesn't get it in the same way, you can watch film. You can get all the mental reps you want, but when it comes to actually being on the field, going through reads, putting timing down receivers, actually throwing the ball, he's not going to be able to do that for a while. So where does that leave the team going into the 2023 season? Are they still likely to trust Matt Corral's development when they didn't get to see him at practice week after week throughout the season? So this does really have major consequences. I think a lot of people are going to look at this injury as that, well, he wasn't going to play this year. It's not going to affect the team at all. But I don't believe that's the case. I do think upper management is actually really worried about what this injury can mean for the team. Because I think he wasn't necessarily a safety net, but he was their plan going forward. He was, I think, the future, what they thought would be the future of the franchise. That you don't trade up for a player even in the third round if you don't think he can actually contribute to the team. Maybe not this year, but you do think in the future he will be a solid contributor to the team. Now Matt Corral, I'm not saying he can't be that. But if the team believes he needs development, that development really won't come this year, or at least not at the pace they are hoping for him to be able to take over next year, if Baker doesn't play well. And even if Baker does play well, if Baker goes out here and lights the world on fire, Baker's only signed for this 1 year. He'll go into next year as a free agent. So if he goes out there this year and balls out, throws for 4,500 yards, 35 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions, some great numbers, it's going to be a bidding war to sign Baker. The Panthers might not be able to afford him, or some of the team might outbid them. So even if Baker does play well, they can still go into 2023 without Baker Mayfield on the team. Sam Darnold's not coming back. If Matt Rule goes to the Super Bowl this year with Baker Mayfield, even if he has he gains some more clout within the organization, I don't think Tepper or Fitterer are going to allow him to bring Sam Darnold back. This is Sam Darnold's last year in Carolina. So with Baker and Sam Darnold not being signed past this year, and even if Baker does play well, he could still not come back because some of the team might outbid the Panthers and sign him then. If Matt Corral doesn't develop at the pace they thought he would, that could really that could really affect how the Panthers plan going into 2023. Would they then have to go into free agency for a quarterback? Would they then, just still trust Matt Corral even though he didn't develop what they hoped he would? There's a lot of things that the organization has to consider now just because of this injury. That's all I have for you in this one, guys. If you enjoyed this video, go hit that thumbs up. While you're down there, if you're so inclined, hit that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it. Also, leave a comment. Do you agree that this could be very impactful for the Panthers' future? Or if you don't, let me know down in the comments. I respond to almost everything. And I'll see you guys in the next one.